Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me again on my mental health live stream. I broadcast live. This is Dr. Stephen Walker, broadcasting live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, where we deal with mental health questions, answers. We bring up different topics that we can discuss, all in an attempt to normalize conversations about mental health. This live stream is not about me just coming on and talking about a topic. This is about you engaging with me about mental health questions, about something you're going through, about advice you may need, or just, hey, Miranda, how are you? Thanks for joining. Kat, how are you? I've been meaning to catch up with you, Kat, seeing how things are going. I don't know whatever happened last week with your situation, so feel free to engage with me about that. And by the way, if you are catching this on YouTube or after I post it, please, there's tons of other videos up there, some dating back 4 or 5 years ago, that you should check out. There's a lot of content up there, making it free to the public so that, during this coronavirus craziness, we can at least engage with each other about what's happening in our minds, because things are, hopefully things will level out at some point, but we can't just keep information that could help people to those who can pay for it. So please check out my other videos. Please check out some of the other content up there. So tonight we're going to be, hey, Samantha, how are you? So, okay, Kat, good to hear. Still on watch at home, waiting on a private room. Okay, well, how are things going, Kat? Are you managing it? Are you still able to work with your psychologist about your situation, what's happening within you? It's important that you engage with that, Kat. It's important that you continue to bring a sense of hope and a sense of belief that you can learn to manage that. You can learn to manage those fractured parts of your mind. I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not dealing with it, but we've got to be in a situation where we don't lose hope. Hopelessness is one of the main issues relating to why people want to kill themselves, or why they give up and get more and more depressed, because they get themselves into a place where they don't believe there's any hope and they just give up. So, Kat, I know you got a lot going on, but please do not give up, okay? Don't give up on this. Inside of you is a part of you that wants to heal. Inside of you, there's a part of you that believes that you can heal. You got to keep holding on to that. I don't know how old you are and how long you've been dealing with this, Kat, but please do not give up on that. That part of you is a very real part of you. It's a part in all of us that's just craving for equanimity, balance, homeostasis. But a lot of times it's difficult to find that balance because we don't give ourselves time to deal with our mental health. We deal with our physical health. Most of us do. We deal with all kinds of different aspects of our health, but we don't deal with what's in our mind because we stigmatize that in our society. So let's talk a little bit about how self-esteem and social anxiety play off each other. So self-esteem and social anxiety are kind of like, not kind of, but they're like the chicken or the egg. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Exactly, Sam. We're here for you, Kat. And remember, Kat, you can heal. Do not give up on that. Okay, Kat's saying things are getting worse. I had a brief episode of suicidal thoughts over the weekend, so he wants me admitted. I am ready. Have a nurse here to help me because of my dissociative identity disorder. In the morning now, it's around the clock. Oh, that's difficult. It must be very difficult dealing with that. It must be, hey, Josie, how are you, from Jersey? Kat, what I can tell you is this: you've got a pretty significant psychiatric condition, as you know. Those kinds of situations are extreme. They're like having cancer, or they're like having some extreme illness on the scale of illnesses, but they can be healed. They can be healed. A lot of what suicidal thoughts you're probably struggling with is the feeling like, if this crap in my head doesn't stop, I can't live like this. And that's totally, who wouldn't think like that if they were in your situation? What I can encourage you to do, Kat, is to get deeper into the pain that has caused your psyche to split off like that. You and I both know, and you're treating psychologist, that there's trauma that you've been through that has caused this. If Kat was not traumatized, Kat would not be dealing with all of this. The problem is that when you have an extreme case of dissociative identity disorder, it's so completely unnerving, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know which alter, which sense of your personality is going to come out. You never know how that's going to overwhelm you. It's an alter that's suicidal. She has suppressed, but I don't know how she's able to surface again. I hear you. That alone right there is anxiety at the highest level. What I will say to you though, Kat, is there are ways to treat this. It's a mental illness, and there are ways to treat it. There, as you know, don't give up. Okay, you're going through a difficult period. All this pain you're going through can be leveraged so that you can try to find some more balance. Now, I don't know, what your psychiatrist has prescribed for you. I don't know what you're working on with your psychologist, but try to focus on believing that you can continue to work on this. The idea that we cannot heal is a lot of times what keeps people spinning down lower and lower. So we need to keep believing that it's possible we can continue the healing process. Samantha saying DID can be helped. It's not an end to end be all. You can do this. You're stronger than the suicidal one. Exactly. But Kat, see, the issue is that there's something there. There's a trauma in there. And again, I'm not asking you to talk about that tonight. We don't want to flood you, but there's obviously some unhealed trauma in you that needs to be worked on. My recommendation for you is get yourself admitted, get yourself in a safe place, and jump back into the work. Jump back into doing the work so that you can learn to manage all those different personalities, all those different fragments of your ego. There is a chance they could all blend at some point, and you can then have that more of that unified self feeling. You're not there yet. I think she's making it extremely difficult, but it does help when my abuser decides to reach out to me and it doesn't help when my abuser decided to reach out to me and try to contact me. Exactly. So obviously, whoever abused you now has tried to contact you or reach out to you, which has triggered and literally just thrown a boulder into the pond. So we need to put something in place there. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, please share this. Please, we're talking about mental illness. We're talking about mental health. Hey, Melissa, how are you? Good to see you back. I'm glad you found me. Put them kids down early, Melissa, and do something for you. So that's good. Hey, Josie, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, Josie said hi from Jersey. Yeah, exactly. We need to get in a restraining order. We need to get a no contact order on whoever this abuser was. I don't know if it was ever reported. Kat, was the abuse ever reported? I mean, it should be reported. My oldest brother, the person who should have protected me, instead hurt me. Exactly. And that's the pain. That's the unhealed or the not completely healed emotional wound that is causing you to fragment out like this. So I don't know. Oh, okay. That's good, Melissa. I'm glad your husband is home helping with the kids. I don't know what kind of a relationship you have with, other members of your family, because what I'm thinking is, and I've worked with, hundreds of people, thousands at this stage, who have been abused by members of their family. I don't know, what the family dynamic is, Kat. I don't know if your family believes you. I don't know, oh, he just got out of prison for this. He got out of prison for abusing you, or something else. But you've got to leverage the other people in your family to help restrain him contacting you. And you have to get like Samantha says, you have to file a no contact order. You have to be able to get yourself into a situation where you can get protected, so he doesn't have the ability to trigger you like this anymore. But be that as it may, Kat, we also need to do internal work on building up Kat's ego strength. He's completely disowned my mom, pressured charges on him. Oh, press charge. Good. Well, your mom protected you. And that's his issue, that he's the one that caused all of this. You're the victim. Remember, you didn't ask for this abuse. You didn't ask to get abused like this. What I will tell you though is, Kat, is we've got to work internally to build up Kat's belief system in her own ability to deal with this, her own ability to handle the pain, to handle the abuse. I don't know how much exposure therapy. I would imagine your psychologist isn't doing much work on some of that out of fear of triggering you too much. But what I would say is, when you're admitted again, you've got to go in there with a mentality, not like, oh, I'm so great to be admitted into a psychiatric ward. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the attitude of, I can face this. I can deal with this. I can handle this. I can deal with this pain, because it's the pain in there. There is an order in place. He used a friend. I've reported already. Beautiful, beautiful. Get him locked up again. That's a PV. That's a parole violation. If he violates his parole, he will be remanded into custody. I've worked with multiple different adjudication facilities, and people, as they call it, on paper, have to follow certain rules. And if he is causing you, or anyone else is causing you, that he's manipulating, file a report on them. The person's an accessory to a crime in a sense. But Kat, the thing is we've got to continue to talk. Kat has to find that one unified self that is Kat, the Kat that's talking now, and begin working on believing that you can heal, believing that you can work on these issues, okay? I know that it's difficult. I know that it's scary. I know that you've been dealing with this for years. That the issue is, Kat has to begin building up her ego strength. Out of fear of triggering me, yeah, I don't open up much when I'm saying now is fair into detail as I go, as I'm closed off. And last year, he's picked up again along with drug charges. Okay, great. Well, that's part of the problem right there, Kat, is, we as mental health people don't really understand how difficult being somebody doing this kind of work is. And I'm not looking for sympathy or anything like that, but people don't understand that when we're working with a client, the client hurting themselves or doing something that causes pain to the client is our nightmare. Our nightmare scenario is doing something that then we feel guilty about causing harm to. I have a lot of physician friends, and they go through the same thing. The old, the adage of do no harm. So what Kat's psychologist or counselor is probably going through is he knows, Kat's in a very fragile state, but he also knows that the only way to really heal her is by exposing her slowly, therapeutically, to the trauma she went through, those feelings. Remember, you got to feel it to heal it. I know it sounds corny, but it's true. That's what we do. We try to help people feel things in a therapeutic way in order to start the healing process. So his hands are probably tied in the sense that he wants you to work on this, but he also knows that he doesn't want to trigger you and cause anything that's going to cause you any harm. So I feel for him, because I know what it's like. 20 years in this field, you learn lessons about what you don't want to cause people to do. So, yep, it feels like you failed because you feel like you triggered it. So it's walking on eggshells. Well, you guys should talk about that. I would recommend that you talk about with your psychologist about that we're walking on eggshells, that, we need to do more of the work. We need to handle some of these deeper issues. Because Kat, what I can tell you this, sister, is that there's a Kat inside of you that wants to heal. There's a Kat inside of you that hasn't given up. That's why you continue coming onto these live streams. That's why you continue taking your meds. Excuse me. That's why you continue going to your sessions, because there's a part of you that wants to heal. We need to leverage that. We need to continue working on that. That's the part of you that I want you to focus in on. I want to heal. I want to have these emotional wounds heal. But again, thank you for sharing. And like you said before, you don't open up that often and talk. So thank you for opening up today and talking about that. The sexual abuse that your brother went through or put you through is difficult to even imagine dealing with. That's why a lot of people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, don't, avoidance of the trigger that caused the trauma is what keeps the disorder in place. So I explained the warning sign so he knows when he's at the point to stop and can't push anymore. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, it sounds like you found a good one. It sounds like you found somebody that you have a good therapeutic alliance with, somebody you have a good bond with. And it sounds like that, what I would recommend, Kat, is you got to start building up your ego strength on your own, sister. You got to start talking to yourself saying, I can handle these blanking alters. I can deal with this. I can handle this. Not in a way that's going to stir them up and sort of fight back, but have you begin to believe they might or may not. I don't know. They may, and it's interesting with somebody with DID. I've worked with a few people with that. It's interesting how the majority of the alters are negatively affecting you, in a way that's trying to beat you down. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason. Hello, Eleanor. How are you? I'm going to get into that in a second, Eleanor. We're going to talk about the low self-esteem, but we're working on helping Kat, who's in a precarious situation right now. There's a reason that most of the alters, when you're working with somebody with DID, are fighting and hating and putting you down, and that's because those are symptoms of the abuse. Those are symptoms of the abuse. It's multiple doctors, but it's a great team. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, hats off to them. So Kat, keep us abreast of things. I'll be on Thursday if you're still out. Let me know, whatever I can do to help from this end. But my coaching to you, because that's all I can offer on one of these situations, is do not give up. Do not give up. Do not allow your mind to drift into, I'm never going to heal. I'm always going to be struggling. I'm never going to get over this. I'm always going to be that kind of thinking. And I know it's easy for me to say, sister, trust me. But that kind of thinking will eventually just beat you down. And we don't need any more beating down. Okay. The nurse says hello. She wants to make, I don't know what that means. Make sure I'm not being triggered. Good. Thank you. Tell her thank you. And you're not being triggered, because all we're doing right now is trying to soothe you. We're trying to give Kat some self-talk that says, I can handle this. If I get triggered, I can deal with that. I can handle that. Okay. So Kat, I'll come back to you in a little bit later. So, and maybe this can help you too, how to manage low self-esteem and anxiety. So replying to, do you doubt yourself? Yes, that's a good question, Melissa. So where's Eleanor? Let's see. Good evening. What are the signs of low self-esteem and how do you manage it? Okay. Well, one of the key signs of low self-esteem is, there are many. So I'm just going to touch on a few because, this is the very limited amount of time that I have on this. But one of the key signs of low self-esteem is if you have a really negative relationship with yourself. And anyone who's watched these live streams now for, I've been doing them a few months now, know that my mantra is the most important relationship you should have is your relationship with yourself. And people who are very religious say, no, man, no, the most important relationship you should have is your relationship with God. And what I say to that is, if you hate yourself, you're not going to have a great relationship with God. So that's one of the examples of low self-esteem is, how does Eleanor treat Eleanor? How does Eleanor talk to Eleanor? What does she say to her? And again, guys, if you're watching this, please share this, okay? There's nothing to be ashamed of. We are talking about our mental health in an open and honest way so that we can deal with it. And if we had a society of people working on their mental health, aware of their belief system, aware of how their trauma is affecting them, we'd have a totally different world, because people would be like, well, wait a minute. Is that coming from me, or am I hating you because you're an ass? That we would have a totally different society. So please share this, and please talk about your mental health with people who are trained and licensed to do that. Okay. So another example, we're talking about low self-esteem and social anxiety. So let's say I hate myself, and I've been very honest about some of my own struggles when I was younger as a mixed race individual, going to an all white high school, being teased, being called ugly, being called half-breed. All these things that I went through as a kid caused me early in my life, in my late teens and early 20s, mid 20s, to hate myself, to not feel much value, until I started doing the work, until I started working on myself and talking things out. So let's say there's a person out there who's still struggling with low self-esteem in the sense from coming out of self-hate. What are they going to project outward when they go into a social situation? This is how low self-esteem and social anxiety are tied together. So if I hate myself and I go to a party, does that just switch off and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, everyone in this party is happy to see me and everybody loves me? Of course not. I project outward the internal self-hate and I start thinking, oh man, they're talking about me, or someone laughs and you think, are they laughing at me? That's social anxiety is usually, if not always, usually rooted in fear of judgment, fear of making a fool out of yourself, fear that instead of walking into a situation and thinking, oh yeah, cool, everyone's happy to see me, they love me, I love being here, everything's great. Instead, no, because the low self-esteem is in you, it's pumping out. Remember, we talked about a previous show, live stream, we talked about spotting your projections. Remember, being able to identify, are those people hating me? Or is it me hating me and I'm assuming they're hating me? So that's one example. Let me see if there are any comments here. Melissa saying to Eleanor, anytime you feel that we try to actively correct the thought into one that encourages you. For example, personally, when I feel self-doubt, I try to counter it with gratitude. It helps me actively change how I talk to myself. Excellent, Melissa, excellent. But what I would offer to you, just to fine tune that a little bit, is Melissa has to deal with what's causing her to feel self-doubt. Melissa has to expose herself to those negative feelings so that she can begin working on them. Because like I was just talking to Kat, ultimately, one of the hallmarks of low self, not hallmarks, but one of the things that you can pretty much count on when you're working with somebody with self-esteem is trauma from their past. Trauma from their past. They either were bullied, they didn't get enough love, and people love putting down other people. Oh, you didn't get enough love. Not getting enough love, or getting inconsistent love, variable love, where all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, do you love me or not, or whatever. That is an extremely damaging way to raise a child, okay? I'm not saying you're supposed to be perfect. I'm not saying you're supposed to never get mad at your kids. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that when you hate yourself as an older person, when you have low self-esteem, when you think low about yourself, that is learned behavior. Melissa's saying, oh no, my inner voice is that of my abusers. Exactly. My voice is that of gratitude. So we got to work on that inner voice, Melissa. We got to work on, that voice of the abusers. I've always said for years working with abusers, we learn to treat ourselves the way we were treated by other people. And that needs to be worked on. So getting back to how self-esteem affects social anxiety, how you feel about yourself. Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. No, I got off topic there. So I want to go back to how self-esteem is formed. So when you have low self-esteem, when you feel bad about yourself as a person, that's usually related to, like I said before, that is learned behavior. You learned to treat yourself that way. You learned that because of the way you were treated as a child. You treat yourself the way you were treated growing up. So if you weren't prized, if you didn't feel that people loved you, if you felt like things weren't really good and you didn't have a lot of empathy or somebody to talk to, you're going to have low self-esteem. So let me get to a couple questions here. Ali from YouTube. Thanks, Ali, for logging on, man. I appreciate this. Please share this. How do you even control what your inner voice is? Beautiful question. I feel like mine is affected from external circumstances. Ronald saying, Dr. Steve, you're right. It's impossible to love God if he is love, but we don't love ourselves. We often rehearse trauma. Absolutely, Ronald. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying is God, we can have a live stream on God because I engage with my client patients on multiple different levels. I'm very upfront with them about spirituality and God. And I do believe there's a place for that in mental health. I'm not a very religious person. No offense to anyone who's religious, not saying religion is bad. Just went through too much Catholic school, which beat the religion out of me. But I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in that we are part of something larger. I don't think there's any way you can look up at the night sky and think we're not part of something larger. But so I think that we have a completely different view on what God is. I think God, like I say this to many of my clients, I think God's a lot cooler than we think God is. I think we learned in a mean, castigating, punishing God that we have to come on our knees to. And, you know, that is perpetuated by human beings who are in a power position. But we can talk about that another time. So, yeah, Ronald, that I feel you on that. We do rehearse our trauma. So let's get back to Ali's question. How do you even control what your inner voice is? I feel like mine is affected from external circumstances. It is definitely, Ali, it's definitely your inner voice is definitely affected by external circumstances, but that's only 50% of the situation, my brother. The other part of it is being affected by Ali's inner circumstances. I don't know what Ali was raised like. I don't know if Ali was raised by a very controlling father. I don't know what what little Ali was learning about little Ali. I don't know anything what's going on, but I can guarantee you this, brother. When you say how to control your inner voice, you wouldn't be on this live stream if that inner voice was saying shit like, excuse my language, stuff like, oh, Ali, you're such a great guy, man. People love you. You're going to be so successful. You know, it's okay that you make mistakes. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You know, that inner voice ain't saying that, right, brother? It ain't saying that. I learned from a Buddhist teacher of mine that said that you know, people are always talking about the monkey mind and how our thoughts are constantly going. Nobody would have a problem with a monkey mind and constant rumination if the mind was pumping out, just these beautiful, warm, self-affirming, blessed thoughts. Nobody would have a problem with it then. The inner voice that Ali is having trouble controlling is the inner voice of self-hate, self-castigation, being put down, holding oneself to unrealistic expectations. So Ali, when you say your inner voice is being affected by external circumstances, what do you mean by that? Okay, here you're following up. Beautiful. This is why I'm doing this. This is exactly why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this just to be another talking head. Oh, well, this is what you do with reactive attachment disorder, and it's caused by... No. This is about engaging with people who have questions about mental illness and mental health, okay? Because we all have a degree of mental illness. Just like we all have a degree of physical illness, we all have a degree of mental illness. So Ali's saying, but I feel like even my own mind, my own thoughts, and my own decisions, I feel like as though I have lost full control over myself and what I think and what I do. Beautiful, Ali. Thanks for sharing that, my brother. This is excellent example of why I'm doing this, because Ali is now talking about his mental health, his mental illness. What he's talking about is that he feels his constant ruminating, his constant thinking, his decisions are out of his control because he can't seem to reel in that constant chatter. Well, my brother, the first step, which is I prescribe this pill to every new client I work with, it's the It's Okay pill. And now all of a sudden it's all over. It's okay to not be okay and all this, but that's cool. It's all good. We're all here to help each other. But that's my version of the It's Okay pill, Ali, is Ali has to say to himself, it's okay that I can't control my thoughts right now. It's okay that I feel out of control. It's okay. It's okay. Because remember, Ali, if you hate the fact that you're out of control, remember this, in this hand, we got Ali's out of control mind, positive or negative? Negative, right? In this hand, I got hate, right? Positive or negative? Obviously negative. If Ali keeps hating and hating and hating, he's fueling those negative thoughts and emotions. So the first step for you, my brother, is Ali has to say to himself, it's okay that I don't have control of I feel like I'm losing my control of my mind. It's okay, but I got to work on it because, bro, I'm guaranteeing you there's some learned behavior inside of you that is causing you to not feel like you're in control. Maybe Ali didn't have a lot of control growing up. I don't know culturally what's going on. I don't want to jump to any conclusions about, your cultural conditioning based on your name. But my brother, I got tons of Muslim friends. I got tons of Jewish friends. I got tons of Persian friends. I got not tons, but I know a lot of people. I've moved around a lot and I've traveled a lot. But if you are coming from a cultural perspective that has imposed that kind of thinking on you, you got to look at that, bro. You got to look at that. You got to look at how Ali learned that he didn't have any control. What positions was Ali in as a child that caused him to feel out of control? But the main thing, bro, and men, and I'm sorry if I call people brother and sister, this is the way I am. I do genuinely believe we are all brothers and sisters, and we need to start helping each other more, not creating dependency on each other, but helping each other more. But brother, you got to get into where you learned to think this way. That's one of the keys. Otherwise, we just grasp or think, am I this? Am I that? Why am I like this? Well, you've got to start identifying the source of the infection. Okay. Samantha's saying, Ali, talk to your inner voice down. You are better than you have heard. Put new words in your head. Good. That's good advice. But that's, honestly, Samantha, that has to come after he does the work on why are these thoughts in there. And people ask me all the time, well, dude, like, why do you focus so much on the whys of why people are? Well, I don't know, man. Let's think about that. Why does an oncologist or a cancer researcher try to figure out how cancer is formed? I don't know. Do you think maybe if we figure out how cancers form, then we can treat it? Until then, we're just treating symptoms. That is why I give people whys. Let's take an example of Black people and white people hating each other. Let's say I'm mixed race, but let's say I hate all white people or whatever. Until I get into why I hate white people, I'm going to just think I'm a white hating person. That's who I am. Or let's say I'm a white nationalist, which I'm not. I'm not a racist individual. I'm using racism as an example of learned, conditioned behavior. Okay. Once I identify, it's not that I'm a white nationalist or a hardcore BLM person who hates, I'm not saying Black Lives Matter, people hate white people. I'm not saying that, just using it as an example. But once I identify that I'm not who I think I am, then I can begin to take it easy on myself and say, I learned this. So Ali, you need to figure out what is going on with these thoughts in your mind. Why are they so negative? Why are those thoughts something you want to escape? Why can't you take refuge in those thoughts? Why isn't your mind your best ally? We talk about own worst enemy. This is exactly what I'm talking about with self-esteem. Self-esteem is taught to us as kids. We learn how to feel about ourselves based on how we are treated. And then that leads to social anxiety. Now, they're perfect. There are a lot of examples of, not a lot, but I'm sure there are examples of people who have social anxiety and think very highly of themselves. That's a whole different matter. Social anxiety, think about the word social anxiety. You're anxious in social situations. That needs to be looked at. That needs to be looked at. Usually people who are very socially anxious have a fear of judgment, have a morbid fear of being judged. And social media ain't helping that, people. Social media, and excuse my language here, I'm going to use the F word. So everyone who's offended by that, please brace yourself. The I don't give a fuck mentality. I don't have two fucks to give, and I don't have two Fs and all of this. That is absolutely the absolute worst avenue you can go down, by cultivating an I don't give an F mentality. Okay. That not caring, as I've said for many years, not caring is not healthy. I'm not saying we need to care to the nth degree and be totally selfless. I'm not saying that either, but not caring is associated with multiple mental illness and multiple disorders. Okay. Narcissism. Let's talk about narcissism. Getting off topic here a little bit, but narcissism is fueled by lack of empathy, by not caring. Okay. So Ali, you've got to work on those thoughts that are plaguing you, those negative thoughts that are plaguing you. You've got to say to yourself, it's okay that I have these issues. It's okay that I'm feeling what I'm feeling, but I got to work on that. Okay. So the interesting thing about low self-esteem and social anxiety is it kind of becomes this feedback loop. Let's go with the chicken or the egg scenario. That completely changed the way I think about it. Thank you so much. Okay, Ali, thank you for that feedback, bro. But you can't, there's no quick fix here, my brother. All I'm doing is giving you some breadcrumbs, some roadmaps to start looking. So whatever I said that helped you change the way you think about it, don't go for quick fix, man. You gotta, it's like building up muscle, bro. You got to work the muscle. So I'm glad it helped. I'm glad it helped. That's why I'm doing this, dude. But there's no quick fix. Okay. If you can fix overnight and spike up, guess what's going to happen the next night? Okay. So you got to take it easy, Ali. You got a little bit of little shift. You got to work the shift. Okay. Keep the questions coming. Totally forgot what I was about to say, but oh yeah, chicken or the egg, which came first? So, and I'll get to your question in a sec, Ronald. Thank you. Which came first? Did the social anxiety come first, and then that makes the person feel bad about themselves, or did the self-esteem come first, and then the social anxiety follows, and then it becomes this friggin' circle of effing pain that never stops? Okay. What I will offer to you guys, because this is a deep topic that requires a lot more work than 1 hour live stream. But what I will say to you is, people who are struggling with either low self-esteem or social anxiety, they hate themselves for feeling that way. They hate that they're shy. They hate that they're socially anxious. They I can't stand it. I'm like this. Why? Margie's not like this, or Bill's not like this. And they just savage themselves. And that just deepens and deepens it. Now their self-esteem is even lower, is going lower. And then that's fueling more social anxiety, or the other way around. The key is breaking that circle at some level, either working on the low self-esteem or working on the social anxiety. Hey, Kat, welcome back. So before I keep going, let me get to Ronald's question. Can you expound on how codependency may be linked to low self-esteem? I struggle with codependent relationships. Okay. Great question, because there's a misperception out there about what codependency is. Okay, let me give you guys the clinical, how codependency came into the vernacular of mental health and mental illness. So codependency originally came out of addiction treatment, and I've worked with hundreds of addicts, thousands of addicts. I've worked in treatment facilities. Codependency is when, let's say I have an addiction to heroin, okay? And then my wife gets addicted to my addiction, meaning she becomes dependent on my addiction as a source of self-identity. So she becomes my caregiver. She identifies with that. She becomes dependent on my disorder. That's how codependency, and there's multiple variations of that when you're dealing with addiction treatment. But that's the basic idea of codependency. Let me tell you what codependency is not. Codependency is not being dependent on someone else in your life that you're close to, either physically or emotionally or psychologically. That is not codependency. When it becomes codependency is when there's an unhealthy aspect of your partner that you are now addicted to, or that maintains or keeps the relationship in place. That's why when I'm working with somebody with an addiction, I warn everybody around them. Yeah, exactly, Sam. That's a 10-hour live stream for codependency. Exactly. But it's a great question. I warn everybody when I'm working with a family who has an addict, whatever, them getting healthy is going to could destabilize the marriage, could destabilize the relationship. And people would say, well, wait a minute, how would it destabilize? Trust me, I've seen it over and over. So Ron, let me ask you something. Now that I've kind of teased out the difference between codependency and dependency, what are we talking about here with your codependent relationships? Does it mean that Ron gets very dependent on the person? Like he begins needing the person? He begins feeling a sense of like Like what? So just fill me in a little bit on that, Ron, like what you're talking about now that I've sort of given you maybe a different idea of what the difference between codependency and dependency is. Because let me tell you something, people. American culture stigmatizes dependency. American culture, we're all about individualism, okay? I call it pathological individualism. Literally, pathological individualism. Why is it pathological? Because most other cultures are collectivistic. Most other cultures look at having a sense of duty to their fellow person in the culture. That's called healthy. Okay, it's healthy to have a certain amount of dependency on people who are in your life. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, first off, it's stigmatized. Dependent. Oh my God, you can't be dependent on anybody. Well, let me ask you something. Are you dependent on food? Oh, that's not what good. That's not. I know we can eat. We don't. Oh my God, I'm so pathetic. I'm dependent on food. Are you dependent on water? Are you dependent on air? Well, guess what, people? There's nothing wrong with being dependent to a degree on love, on caring, on somebody caring about you. Okay, nothing wrong with that at all. The question is how much? Just like how much food you eat, how much air you breathe, because you can, too much oxygen can affect your cells, and how much water or food or water. You can overdo it on dependency, but that doesn't make you codependent. Co is the word. You are dependent on somebody's illness. You're dependent on somebody's addiction. That's how codependency got into our culture. So yes, getting back to your not got into our culture, but the term codependent has been completely corrupted. So yes, Ron, absolutely, being overly dependent can be linked to low self-esteem. Sure. So since you're not responding, I don't know if you're still on, but let me just finish up on this. I'll give you what I think you may be talking about. So what I'm guessing is Ron gets into a relationship. He has low self-esteem maybe going into the relationship. So now he needs the person in the relationship to affirm his value. He needs the relationship to give him identity. Those are issues that need to be worked on. Because again, Ron, and please, I tell this to all my clients, if I say something that's off base, or if I say something that you don't agree with, keep it to yourself, because I am the expert. Kidding. Please let me know. Let me know if I'm off base, because I don't like to go off on a tangent if I'm wrong. I'm thinking, Ron, something's going on with little Ron back there. I don't know if he had a unstable mother. I don't know if what his upbringing was. I don't know if he had a smothering mother. That's a whole nother conversation. Mothering. So, or fathering. I'm not talking about just mothers. I'm talking about parents who smother their children and don't let the children fall or make mistakes. Something was going on with little Ron where, okay, Ron's saying an over-reliance on someone else for validation approval. That's what I said before, okay? And it's not because I'm psychic. It's because I am the world's most gifted psychologist. No, I'm joking. But it's because I know when I'm talking with somebody, I know how these patterns evolve. So Ron, yeah, my brother, you've got to get into, why do I get so reliant on someone for validation and approval? What is that? You got to tease it out. Is it because I was the golden child growing up, and what Ron did, he peed ginger ale and the, rainbows shot out of his butt and he was never held accountable? Or was it the other way? Did Ron not get enough approval? Did Ron not get a sense of validation? Was no one telling Ron, hey, Ronnie, this is, you're a good kid. It's, was not Ron not getting enough encouragement? So yeah, Ron, the fact that you get over reliant on someone else for validation and approval tells me, thanks, Melissa. Sorry, I try to use humor. It's a heavy topic. Anybody who works with me knows that I got some one-liners in the middle of things that kind of break things up. But I try to, I got an inner comedian that one day will come out. But anyway, Ron, you've got to work on that, where you learned that. where you learn, how you got conditioned to need approval of others. And what I was about to say before Melissa was nice enough to give me a compliment, left-handed, but thank you, was that you got to figure out where you learn that the need for that validation. Because absolutely, self-esteem self-esteem is either fueled or drained by our conditioning, by how we were raised to deal with ourselves. Okay. One of the things I've noticed with working with a lot of men is, and again, Ron, tell me if I'm wrong, but Ron does not like he's like this. Ron hates that he's like this. Ron doesn't talk about this. Ron doesn't deal with this. Ron doesn't like weakness. Ron doesn't like to be perceived as needy. Ron doesn't like any of this dependency. So what I would say to you, my brother, is you got to make it okay. You got to take the it's okay pill, Ron, and say to yourself, it's okay that I'm like this. It's okay that this is affecting me. I got to deal with it. Okay. And there are many ways to do that. Hire a mental health person, a licensed mental health person. Talk things out. You've got to talk things with you. The act of hearing yourself talking about things you've never talked about and then getting feedback about how to deal with that, very powerful, very powerful. So Juan is saying, sup, doc. So my bro don't think he's offensive when he says jokes about black people. He says them in front of his girlfriend's daughter who's young. Any advice on how I can approach this, Holmes? He's got control and anger issues, so the girls don't really say nothing. One of them is black. Well, yeah, bro. I mean, I don't know what's up with your friend here, but clearly he's got some boundary issues. Clearly I don't know, maybe he's a closet racist. I don't know. But, the advice I would talk to you or give you is talk to him. Tell him how you feel. Ask him, dude, what is up with that? What is up with the racist jokes, man? What is going on? Tell him, set boundaries. You don't have to be like, I'm going to fucking kick your ass and shit. I'm not saying come at him like that, but excuse my language, but talk to him. If he's a bro, if he's somebody you're close to and he's offending you, or he's saying it in front of his girlfriend's daughter, who's young and impressionable, is probably thinking like, oh, that's okay to make fun of black people. Talk to him, call it out one day if he does it. Ask if the daughter's in the room, say, honey, how do you like when Ben says that, or whatever his name is? How do you like that? How does that? Talk it out. But the best thing to do, and I always they say they don't mind him saying it. Okay, well, he says he ain't racist, so then it's your issue. I don't know what your ethnicity is, Juan. From your name, you sound Hispanic, but tell him, dude, I don't like racist shit. Sorry, too much cursing tonight. I apologize. I don't like racist stuff. I've lost friends for that. I've lost employers who don't understand my mixed ethnicity and who drop the N-word like it's nothing. Trust me, people, racism is out there. So, Juan, if you're offended by that, let him know, dude. And yes, I do firmly believe that you need to set boundaries with people who are triggering you. Yeah. Them control issues. He won't let me talk to the girls. Then talk to him. Juan, talk to him. And bro, sometimes we got to jettison people who aren't getting it, or we just have to accept, oh, that's just the way they are. That's just the way they are. But racism, that's high on my list of deal breakers when it comes to friends. Or we all make prejudice jokes. People, Hispanic people make fun of other races. People make fun of Hispanic, be Jews, black, whatever. But when it gets into, oh, so he's your brother. Oh, so he's your like blood brother. I got you, like your biological brother. Well, then you guys have the connection to talk about it. Okay? Then you need to talk things out with him, brother. Because again, men don't like talking about their issues. Men don't like talking. Men don't want to seem, oh, I'm sorry to say, a lot of women don't know the way men savage each other. Mexicano, all right, man. Cool. And if he's familia, bro, then you got to talk to him about it. You got to let him know how you feel. You got to let him know point blank, talk it out with him. I don't like racist jokes, dude. and see how it goes. Okay. But I always default, my bias obviously is communication, talking things out. That's my bias. People don't talk about things enough. People don't talk out how they're feeling to people around them because they're afraid of judgment, which is part of that social anxiety piece. You know, when Juan says he's Mexican, you know, there's a whole culture there of machismo and not wanting to look like this. So we just, you know, and I've seen that work positively and negatively. So Juan's saying, so the boundaries are with me. I'm just surprised that the girls don't have those boundaries. I feel you. I feel you. Well, you know, again, maybe they do, but they don't admit it. Maybe they do and they don't talk about it. But bro, if you have a boundary when it comes to racism, nothing wrong with that in my book. I mean, you know, racism is embedded in well, not only in this country, but worldwide. People need to talk about it. People need to have conversations about race. People need to talk about racism. People, this idea, again, I said this in a show before. If you're a white person and you say to a minority, I don't see color, I don't see ethnicity, you are offending that minority. I know you may not think that, but you are offending the minority by saying, oh, I don't see color. I don't see your color. People of color want you to see their color. People of color, not treat them differently, but people of color want you to see their color and acknowledge their color. Okay. So we're getting a little off topic here, but yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Social anxiety and low self-esteem have cultural and racist underpinnings, especially if you live in a culture where you're being discriminated against. Sure, Juan, no problem. Thanks for coming on. I like that, resonating with you. That's good way to put it. So, you know, we bounced around a little bit tonight, but that's what these live streams are about. You know, I like the interaction. I like getting feedback from people about what they're going through. So just to wrap up, the way to manage low self-esteem and how it affects social anxiety is to admit to yourself, first step is to admit to yourself that you have low self-esteem. It's okay that I have low self-esteem, but I got to work on it. And then you have to begin managing how you're projecting that low self-esteem out into your social relationships. Okay. Right. Exactly, Melissa. And acknowledge the culture attached to that color. Exactly. And not only that, acknowledge the trauma associated with that color. People, I'm going to go on a soapbox here for a second. Excuse me. People like to look at Black people and say, dude, slavery was hundreds of years ago, man. When are you going to get over it? Imagine thinking your grandparents had their teeth shaved down, or people defecating in their mouth, or being dehumanized, being ripped apart. Imagine that. That's my great-great-grandfather's 4-year-old slave boy, Micaiah. Okay. That is not something people are going to get over. Now, am I saying you use that trauma to like hold people hostage? Of course not. But we need to talk about it. Okay. Okay, so Kat is saying, thanks, Doc. The lorazepam is starting to kick in. Maybe good. Use those tools, Kat. Use those tools, sister. Nothing wrong with needing a cast on your arm or a crutch to your heel. The medication is there to help you calm down. Okay, it's there to help you calm down. So, yeah, exactly. Now, we're not going to get off on the whole, we're not going to, you know, I don't want to get off too far with the whole racism conversation, but I would just encourage people to be more aware of how Black people's self-esteem is being affected by generational trauma. Okay. And I know white people don't like to admit that, hey, maybe my ancestors owned your ancestors. Start with that conversation with a Black person. You'll be amazed at how the conversation flows, owning it. Okay. All right, people. Hope that helped. I'll be on again Thursday night. Again, anybody ever wants to come on and talk about some of their stuff live, shoot me a text on this number. We can do a pre-interview, and I can open up another window and we can talk about it live and just see what we can work on. It's not technically therapy, it's coaching, but it's a good way to just be in a situation where you can see what working with a mental health person is if you've never worked with anybody. All right. Well, thank you for all your comments. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate people sharing this. Please remember, if you're catching this on YouTube or any other of the social media platforms, please check out my other videos on there. I've got a ton of content. I've got some interviews I did with one of the local TV stations in Tampa. A lot of good stuff out there. Please check it out. Please follow the page and set your notifications so that you know when I'm on live. Here's my website. Anybody ever wants to send me an email or whatever, check it out. But again, I hope everyone has a good night. I'll see you on Thursday night. So that's 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. And please, please share these broadcasts and keep working on your mental illness. We all have a degree of mental illness, just like we have a degree of physical illness. There is nothing to be ashamed of. Okay, we need to work on it. All right, people, I'll see you Thursday night, and we'll come up with another topic and keep the conversation going. Kat, hang in there. Let the lorazepam calm you down. As you're drifting off, Kat, I can handle this. I can heal. I can continue working on this. I got to keep working on it. I can deal with this. I'm not going to let my brother continue to affect me like this. I can handle this. Get that part of you going more. Build up that ego strength, sister. Okay? Build it up. There's a cat in there that wants to heal. Don't give up. Okay? Don't give up. You're welcome, everybody. Debbie, Double Dragon. Hey, dude, still waiting to hear about how things are going, Double D. So let me know. But thanks for logging on. Melissa, thanks for finding me at the earlier time. I've been lamenting, changing, and all of that because so thanks for logging on, and I'll see you guys again on Thursday, and we'll pick up from there. Please send me show topic live stream ideas. If you have ideas you want me to cover, this idea for this live stream came from a YouTube viewer who on my community page sent me a message. Please keep them coming. All right, guys, take it easy. Everyone brace themselves for tomorrow, and just manage the anxiety. We don't know the future. We don't know how everything's going to play out. Let's try to get back to some homeostasis. All right.